Hey everyone, sorry about last week. Yeah, really sorry about last week. I have had 8 days of essentially nonstop. We call him Poppy. Nonstop caring for my dad. Yeah, so when we talk about scarcity next week, you will definitely understand it's real. I've just been running around like a chicken with my head chopped off, um, falling behind in every aspect. So the video last week is now out of date, and we were talking about the upcoming meta trial. So I'm not doing that because I'm not posting it because the meta trial is ongoing. So yeah. So last week we did investments, the behavioral investments, essentially, if you want to call it that, looking at why investments, why behavioral finance matters from the investment perspective, how we jump, fear of missing out, and we all want to follow the leader and herding behavior, et cetera, which leads to bubbles. We talk about when it's rainy, people are in a less good mood, and if they're not in a good mood, stock markets tend to drop. So we did that last week. We talked about hyper discounting and the idea that we should save more, but we don't, and we know we should save more, but we don't because we want to experience the joy now, and even talked a little about how that we might be able to change that. So if you take a picture of yourself and age it, put a filter on it, and you make yourself look 30, 40, 50 years older than you are, all of a sudden supposedly, at least the study suggests, that you will save more for retirement because you'll think of yourself as that person. Um, as in suggestion, and having just left there, I would say it's a strong suggestion. I think the same would work, although I don't know this. I can't. This is not a study. This is just hypothesis here. Walking through or spending some time at a nursing home might have that same consequence. And you may end up saving more, realizing that you really want to make sure you have enough to take care of yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So, um, yeah. And by the way, that my dad went from the hospital to nursing home. First full day is today. He's there. They're wonderful. They're taking good care of him. I spent about 5 hours there, and I'm going back as soon as I post this video. Pretty much as soon as I get post this video, back before my night class. So I just wanted to get this out because it's been on my to do list for 9 days now. Sorry, I really do. I didn't mean to let you guys just leave you hanging, but it's sort of what happened. My family was out of town, so my sister and brothers and all that, no one was around to take care of them except me right now, or then. They got back yesterday, so makes life easier. And we got him in the nursing home yesterday, which should, after the first couple of days, make things easier too. So that was last week, behavioral investments. This week is behavioral corporate and accounting. In that world, we're talking about lots of things. Like one, why do companies so like after many cases, if I'm doing a case class and we're looking at cases of fraud or whatever, the fraud often happens after a period of really good times. And I think what's going on, and what most of the studies suggest is going on, is that people, CEOs as well, get overconfident after a few good times. And just like we talked about when we're hot hands, when you're shooting baskets and you hit a couple, you start taking further and further back shots because you think you can make everything. The same thing happens in the investment world, sorry, in the corporate world, where you start thinking, "Oh my goodness, I can do that. I can make that company work. I can do a, diversifying deal," even though, most of the time we call them diversifying deals. If you go outside of your industry, you probably don't know much about it, and stock prices tend to drop. But if you've just had a really good run and everything is, let me reword that. I'm not talking about running as in running. I'm talking about running as in like you've had a good period of time where you beat earnings and you look like you're doing spectacular as a manager. Then you might take a bigger chance and it may not work, and then you have to cover it up or whatever. Or you don't have to, but you tend to because you think you're smarter than the auditors and they're never going to catch you, yada yada yada. So overconfidence bias is a real issue, not just in the investment world, which we saw last week, but also in the corporate world. Here we also see other ones that are similar to that, in the accounting space. If we look at so let's imagine prospect theory. And prospect theory is the idea that losses hurt more than gains feel good. And we know that. And there have been some studies out that look at if the people This was a VITA. So VITA is volunteer income tax assistance. So there's a network of, I guess you call it, individuals or organizations across the country that help, usually the underprivileged, the poor people who can't afford to go to an accountant and don't want to or may not know how to do their own, will help them with filing their taxes. And what we see, or what previous authors have seen, is that if you got a refund last year and your refund is down this year, you've sort of anchored to what that refund was last year. So I make up a number. I think I'm going to get $1,000 back, and you then find out that you're only going to get $600 back. All of a sudden, you come up with some interesting, questionable, whatever you wanna call it, deductions to get you back to that $1,000, and they didn't find it in other ones, so if people were getting 11,000 back, those deductions just never appeared. So, it's not there's no proof there, but it's at least consistent with the idea that prospect theory matters, and not just in the investment world, but or sports world or life world, but also in the accounting world. And yeah, I know accounting is in the real world, but we sometimes in finance think it's a different world, but it's the same world, I promise. So those are some of the things we do this week. I think it's fascinating. The other one, we look at some really weird ways to measure overconfidence of CEOs. Everything from length of fingers, the difference between the, I guess you should see it like this, the length of the index finger. Sorry, try this right. I'm looking at the screen. The index finger and the fourth finger. So the second and the fourth finger, that ratio. What they've shown is, I guess you can see it this way even better. So what they've shown is that if the index finger is longer, it tends to mean that in utero, so before you were born, you were exposed to a lot of testosterone. And the view is that you may be overconfident. Really a messy estimate, but that has been looked at. A much better estimate, we think, is looking at people who hold in the money options when they shouldn't be holding in the money options. Um, and so consequently, what we see is that they tend to take bigger risks as well. So a lot going on this week. I hope you enjoy it. And I am going to keep this really short because not only do I have someone knocking at my door, but I also have to get back to the nursing home to see my dad before class. So thank you all. Thank you for all the kind words and really appreciate it. Meta trial. Oh my God, I forgot. Please, please, please look up the meta trial. Fascinating. It is stuff that we have been talking about on how it is likely that Instagram and others intentionally, or at least seemingly intentionally, got us, and especially teenagers and tweens, addicted to their platforms. And also, we have an interesting podcast this week looking at brain rot and how if you get used to really short videos, that's all you lose your concentration, you lose your ability to think, etc. I will share both of them on the thread. But thanks, Grace. Great. Hopefully, and I do apologize. Last week was not my best week. So thanks, everyone. Bye. Hey.